Hi, and welcome to the very first solo episode of the Swell Shenanigans podcast. I'm your host, Amanda, but you can call me Swell. As always, here on the Swell Shenanigans podcast, we're still kind of figuring out what this podcast is going to be. But what I do know is that I love talking about all things social media, pop culture, and shenanigans. And what I would like to start doing is that once a month, I want to start doing a podcast check in. So if you are at all familiar with my social media content on YouTube, you'll know that usually once a year I do a what YouTube paid me in 2020 or 2019 or whatever. And I take a look at my analytics and I make a full video doing a deep dive on that. I just thought it would be interesting that once a month I could come on here and do a type of analytic check-in, and go over my analytics and think it would be a great way for me to track how this podcast has grown since its start and all of that. So this is going to be episode, 7, 6? What episode is this? I don't even know. It's one. It's gonna be not the first episode of September, but it is the first episode I'm recorded in September, so that'll be fun. And sorry if you hear stomping upstairs; those are my neighbors. Cool. So this episode is probably going to be pretty short, and that's just the goal with it, is to just kind of go over the current analytics and break things down for you guys and see where we're at. So since I haven't done one previously, and I technically did start this podcast in July, I'm going to be doing from the inception to the 31st of August for all the analytics that I'm going to be talking about. So most of the analytics I'm going to be getting for you is going to be from Anchor, which is the platform that I use to distribute the podcast. I don't record the podcast using Anchor. I record the podcast using Zencaster, and that's how I record audio and video, and it's a great way for my guests to log in. That way there's nothing for them to do on their end. They don't have to record in GarageBand or Audacity or anything like that. I just send them a link and it handles everything, which is nice. So let me pull up my choose date range. So I'll do from there to the 31st. There we go. So the first episode of the podcast was put out on July 27th. And then I also put out an episode. The last episode of August was put out on the 24th. And then obviously on the 1st, I put out my episode with Diva on Real Housewives, shenanigans and all of that. So I put out a total of 5 episodes since the start of this podcast. In total, I have gained, let's see, is this to date or just the last 7 days? Oh, all time. So all time. So that's including yesterday's episode. But all time plays for this podcast has gotten 3,212, which I think is pretty good considering I've put out a total of 6 episodes now. That's pretty good for a new podcast, even with, I think a lot of people, especially content creators, kind of give up right at the start of doing a podcast because they expect to have an audience and have it be profitable immediately. And for a lot of social media content creators, when they do move into podcasting, that can be the case. But I fully approached podcasting as just another way to talk about things that I was interested in. I also really love doing interviews, and interviews are just something that doesn't do super well on my channel. So I thought that this was a great avenue for me to pursue doing interviews and all of that. I wasn't expecting this to be profitable. This was just a new way for me to branch out into making content. And to date, this podcast has made $0 from Anchor. Anchor has this thing where apparently you can make money through it. I don't know if I just don't know how to activate that, but everyone's telling me that that's like a thing that I can do. I don't know how to turn that on. My estimated audience, based on recent episodes, they're saying this is just solely based through Anchor. They're saying that it's about 457, but my unique listeners in total, they're saying that's about 618. So that's nice that they're going back and listening to other episodes or listening to more than one. That's great. And I think the real trick with YouTube and podcasting, I think, is what I'm seeing is that the best course of action is to just keep making episodes. My goal is to really get to over 20, because apparently 90% of podcasts stop after the first episode. And then another 8% stop after the 20, they don't make it to the 20th episode. So if I can make it to 21 episodes, I'm doing pretty good. So this will be episode 7, even if it's a mini episode. So I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm having fun with it. I really like trying to figure out what this podcast is doing and all of that. But yeah, that's my current analytics, at least based through Anchor. So some of you may be watching the video version and not the audio version of this podcast. I do have a video version because I found that people like my YouTube channel, and so made logical sense for me to have a video format as well as an audio only format for the podcast. So I do have the Swell Shenanigans podcast. Let me pull it up right now. We can look at some of the analytics. So kind of messed myself up. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, I have a family member two who have COVID right now, and I was caring for one of them, and that kind of threw off my whole podcast week, in a sense. Threw off everything, actually, but really threw off the podcast week. So my episode on celebrity hygiene, the video for that didn't go out until the same day as the episode for the Real Housewives Shenanigans. So kind of threw everything off. But my current analytics right now, so I am at currently 601 subscribers. That channel also has not made any money for the podcast because, for those of you who don't know, with YouTube, you have to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time in order to be profitable. So currently, here, let me pull up my monetization on that, because it's much easier for me to track. So currently, like I said, 601 subscribers, need to get to 1,000. And then I currently have 434, yeah, I said it right the first time. What is wrong with my brain? I'm so tired. 434 public hours of watch time. Like I said, 4,000 is required. And then I have 0 active community guideline strikes. So I'm doing Gucci, okay? So they'll let me know once that is available, basically, if monetization is something that I am eligible for, which would be great. So since the creation of the channel, I created it all the way back in May because I was going to do a whole bunch of stuff earlier on than when I ended up actually starting the podcast in July, but I made this channel in May. Got a few views here and there, but in total, I've gained 2.6 thousand views on the podcast channel and about 513 hours of watch time. That seems higher than what it should be. Basically, watch time 513 hours on according to the analytics page itself. And then right now, pulling up my top videos. So in total, the top videos of the period lately, my episode with my friend Mackenzie is number 1 right now. It's got 517 views. Then the second episode is Influencers and Shady Crypto, which obviously first episode. And the average watch time, at least on the YouTube channel specifically, like the average time people are watching the content, is about 13 minutes, which for any YouTube channel, I think is pretty good considering, like, for a podcast, that might seem super low, but in the grand scheme of YouTube, that's actually a pretty good average watch time. Part 2 of Free Britney, that actually has a 16-minute watch time and then 15-minute watch time for the first part of the Free Britney movement, which was the episode I did with Jake Onse TV. Really fun. Both of those have a good amount of views on the YouTube channel side. So like I said, no money from that end, but let's see. Will it pull up my audience analytics? Still kind of figuring out the best time for me to be posting on here. I'm getting a lot of new viewers, which is nice. So now that you know a bit about the actual like audio listens and things like that, let's go into the actual breakdown of the analytics on both Anchor and on YouTube. So on Anchor, what I really like about Anchor is it doesn't just tell me the plays and number of that. It actually breaks down by episodes. So for example, my very first episode, it currently has 911 audio plays. Second episode, 582. Third episode, which was my Free Britney episode, part 1, 537. Second episode of Free Britney, 437. What I thought was interesting was that my episode on celebrity hygiene and Hollywood shenanigans that I did with Mike One from the Mike and Oscar podcast, that actually has 481 plays, which is surprising considering it was out shorter than the amount of time that the Free Britney episode was out, but interesting. And then the episode that I put out yesterday currently has 108 plays. So the geographic locations for my audio listeners through Anchor are the United States 60%, Canada 8%, United Kingdom 6%, Germany 3%, Australia 2%, Brazil 2%, and then everything else is pretty much like less than 1%. The most listens that I get for the podcast is actually through Spotify, which doesn't surprise me considering Anchor is actually done through Spotify. Like that's who made Anchor, is Spotify. So 53% of my audience for the audio listeners is on Spotify, 53%. Apple Podcasts is next, 30%. Web browser, 7%, and then Podcast Addict, which I've actually never heard of, but 2% goes through Podcast Addict, so that's cool. The gender breakdown is actually pretty even, which is what my YouTube channel actually used to be. Now it's more 60% female and 30% male for my YouTube audience for my usual channel, my regular Swell Entertainment channel. For the female gender split, 51%, male 43%, non-binary 6%, and then not specified 1%. Then to the ages, so 5% is 0 to 17 years old, stressful, but fine. 18 to 22 years old, 38%. My age range, 23 to 27, 33%. And then 28 to 34, 16%. 35 to 44, 4%, 45 to 59, 3%, and then there's 1% of 60-year-olds. I am hot with 60-year-olds. That's cool. I like that. Can we get that higher? Okay, so those are those. And then also what is kind of cool is it gives me the device breakdown as well. So 47% iPhone users, and then 36% Android, and then 6% of you are on Windows, and then 11% other. All around, I think I really like the breakdown on Anchor, and I like what they give me for breakdowns. I'm trying to figure out ended, ignored. See, I don't get, we're hard at work matching you with sponsors, and we'll email you as soon as we found you one. Maybe they just don't like my channel. They give me an option to set up subscriptions for my podcast. I currently have my Patreon, and so I'm not really sure if I want to be able to be juggling two subscription platforms right now, even though this is a whole new platform. The podcast does not give added access through my Patreon, so all a work in progress, still figuring things out. And then listener support, currently no listener support yet, but that's fine. I can ask you guys for money. You don't have to give it to me. Just listening is awesome. So the cool thing about Anchor is that they actually give the ability for me to accept like audio recordings from you guys and include them. So if you listen to the celebrity hygiene episode, I played a audio recording that Amanda sent in talking about how she got into an argument with someone who allegedly had a PhD about how birds aren't real. That is a option on, I believe, through Anchor. But also it should be available in all of the description boxes. If not, I will work on that, where you can actually send in your own shenanigans and me and my guests can react to them. I think that's really fun, and it's something that I would love to do more of. And eventually what I would like to do is have more guests on and then be like, hey, here's the guest we're having on today. Do you have any shenanigans you want this specific person to react to, or any questions for this specific person about their shenanigans? Because I would love to have people on talk about their own shenanigans one day. Like I would like to have various YouTubers on who do like shenanigans and like confront them and or have them discuss their shenanigans. I think that would be really fun and interesting just to see people's own reactions to their own shenanigans and see what they actually consider bad, shenanigan-like tomfoolery. I don't know what other shenanigans they find interesting. So I think that'd be fun to do in the future. But yeah, currently only have the one. So the other thing I want to cover really quick is any reviews that I've gotten. So let's see. So for the Swell Shenanigans podcast on Apple Podcasts, there are 13 ratings and they're all 5 out of 5 stars. Yay. So I got a podcast from My One Madden, August 25th. Good stuff. If you like Amanda's YouTube channel, you'll enjoy this too. It's more of her melodic, awkward laughter and fun subject matter. She and her friends, I apologize, her name escapes me, are just having a good time and we get to listen. 2 thumbs up, would recommend. Thank you, Madden. Then we've got a 5-star with Aiden Evan. Good podcast, V funny. Please do an Omegaverse APO podcast with someone who isn't on the internet. I know I'm going to have to. I feel like Jordan knows too much about Omegaverse at this point. I may have to bring my father on and explain Omegaverse to my father. I know what I have to do. I just don't know if I have the strength to do it. Anyway, so those are the 2 actually like written out reviews. If you guys want to write your own reviews and send them in, great. Are there reviews on Spotify? Let me check my Spotify. Hang on. Nope, no reviews on there. Okay, wait, hang on. Let me pull up the public website for the podcast and see if there are any reviews on there. View public site. Nope. Okay, no reviews on there either. Yay. So that's it. All positive. That's it. I have the perfect podcast. But yeah, for the YouTube channel, the podcast channel, let me do a quick little rundown for here through my audience. 41% in the United States. Argentina is next with 4%. Poland is next with 4%. What's up, my Polacks? Love you guys. Eventually, I would like to do subtitles for the podcast. It's just right now I can't because they are so long and it's a lot. So currently, there's no subtitles. 94% no subtitles, obviously. Subscribed, 66% of my watch time is from subscribed people. So that's kind of nice. Again, different split here. We got 33% female, 67% male. And then it's showing that the only audience members here are 18 to 24, so my age range, 45%, 25 to 34, 43%, and 35 to 44, 11%. So very limited audience breakdowns right now for the podcast YouTube channel, but I think that's fine. Overall, I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast so far. As always, send me emails to the podcast email. It'll be linked down below. If you guys would like to do the audio messages for shenanigans for future episodes, go ahead and send one down there, or even just send one to the email and we can read it out and do something like that. These episodes could also just be me going over your shenanigans eventually if you would like to do that. But that's going to be it. I don't really have anything else. Still don't know what I'm doing for an ending for this podcast. But yeah, check all of our social media out. Check out all the other episodes that are available. And let me know what you would like to see future episodes about. That's going to be it. Goodbye.